Right, so are you ready to decode some serious lyrical density?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because you asked for a deep dive into Canibus, the Last Christians, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Love it.
This track is a roller coaster of intricate rhymes and thought-provoking ideas.
It is.
So let's strap it and break it all down.
Let's break it down.
It's a classic Canibus move, weaving together complex narratives with this incredible attention to detail.
Oh, absolutely.
You almost need a lyrical decoder ring to fully grasp everything he's packing in.
You really do. It's dense.
And The Last Christians is one of those songs that really gets under your skin and makes you question everything.
Oh, for sure.
Right off the bat, he hits you with this line.
Yeah.
All spoken language was created by Satan.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
I mean, that's a powerful opening statement, right?
Yeah.
And it really sets the stage for the whole song.
It does.
It immediately throws into question everything we hear and say,
Yeah.
suggesting that language itself can be a tool of deception.
So right away, he's planting this seed of doubt, making you question even the most basic form of communication.
Exactly.
And if you can't trust language, what can you trust?
Right.
It goes to the core of everything.
Absolutely. And that distrust extends to authority figures throughout the song. He
Yeah.
talks about Tier 1 scientists hiding the truth about human origins and asks, the telescope is offline. Why?
Yeah.
It's like he's saying there's a deliberate effort to keep us in the dark.
It's that classic conspiracy theory trope, the idea that those in power are actively suppressing knowledge.
Right.
And he even hints at the existence of extraterrestrial life with the line, life on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's pulling back the curtain on a hidden reality that we're not supposed to know about.
Absolutely. And this idea that information is being controlled ties into his line.
Yeah.
History's always been sorted, important facts not reported.
Oh, wow.
So not only are we being kept in the dark about the present,
Right.
but our understanding of the past has also been manipulated.
It's a pretty bleak worldview. But Canibus delivers it with such conviction and lyrical skill
He does.
that you can't help but get drawn into his narrative.
It's compelling.
And he doesn't shy away from using real-world events to ground his dystopian vision.
Yeah, he brings in the real world.
The line, he said, Allahu Akbar, and then blew up the plane,
Yeah,
is a clear reference to the Boston Marathon bombing,
right.
which immediately brings the themes of terrorism and religious extremism into sharp focus.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not just some abstract concept of a dystopian future.
Yeah.
He's rooting it in real-world events,
Mm.
making it all the more unsettling.
And it's interesting how he contrasts that line with, they said, God bless his radioactive remains,
Oh, wow.
suggesting a sort of moral ambiguity around the response to terrorism.
Yeah.
It makes you question who the real good guys are in this scenario.
It's like he's saying that everyone has an agenda.
Mm.
Everyone is manipulating information to fit their own narrative.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
ties back to his initial point about language being a tool of deception.
Absolutely. He's creating this complex web of ideas where religion, politics, and technology are all intertwined
Yeah.
and ultimately used to control the masses.
And that control isn't just limited to information. He also paints this chilling picture of technological surveillance and oppression.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about RFID in your brain, babies born with barcodes on their organs, and people shackled to some chains on a train.
It's bleak, man.
It's a pretty grim vision of the future.
Yeah, it is, and it taps into those very real anxieties we have
Oh, yeah.
about the potential for technology to be used against us.
For sure.
It's like he's taking those fears and amplifying them to the extreme, showing us what could happen if we're not careful.
And it's not just about physical control. He also touches on the idea of dehumanization,
Yeah.
with lines like, close enough to hear the laser beams whisper,
Yeah.
where technology has become so pervasive that it's almost sentient.
Right, like it's alive, it's listening.
That line is a great example of Canibus's masterful wordplay.
Oh,
He uses this vivid imagery to create this unsettling feeling of being constantly watched,
mm-hmm.
even by invisible forces.
Yeah, you never know who's out there.
And he contrasts that with more mundane, even humorous details,
Yeah.
like the reference to titties and armpits.
Right.
It's like he's saying that even in this highly technological dystopian future,
Yeah,
we're still fundamentally human,
we are.
with all our flaws and bodily functions.
That's right. It's that juxtaposition that makes his lyrics so compelling.
Totally.
He can go from these grand philosophical statements to these gritty, visceral details in the space of a few lines.
Yeah.
And it keeps you constantly engaged,
Mhm.
trying to unpack every layer of meaning.
And speaking of unpacking, let's take a closer look at some of the specific themes he explores in The Last Christians.
Okay.
One that really stands out to me is the idea of a world on the brink of collapse.
Right. He talks about E. coli, malaria water, Jimmy crack corn from modified hormones, and the whole world's at war.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's a pretty bleak picture of environmental degradation, societal breakdown, and constant conflict.
Yeah, it really paints this sense of impending doom, like everything is about to unravel.
Yeah.
And the line, "They say from disaster comes peace. God bless the deceased."
Oh, wow.
It adds this haunting element of resignation.
He does.
It's like he's accepting that destruction is inevitable and maybe even necessary for some kind of twisted rebirth.
It's a heavy concept, but it ties into that whole apocalyptic vibe that runs throughout the song.
Absolutely.
And even amidst all this chaos and darkness, there's
Yeah.
a glimmer of defiance in Canibus's voice.
There is.
Right? He's not just passively observing this decline.
Yeah.
He's actively pushing back against it with his words.
With his word.
Exactly like in the line, "I got nerves of steel protected from electrical surge.
Mm-hmm.
My curse words become medical terms."
Yeah.
You really get this sense of him transforming negativity into something powerful.
Powerful.
Almost like he's weaponizing language itself. He's taking those dark forces he's railing against
Right.
and turning them into fuel for his creativity.
It's like he's saying, you can try to silence me,
Right.
control me,
Mm-hmm.
but my words will find a way through.
They will always find a way.
It's a powerful message,
It is.
and it speaks to the enduring power of art,
Absolutely.
even in the face of oppression.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that makes Canibus so compelling.
I agree.
He's not just rhyming for the sake of it.
Right.
He's using his words to challenge us, to make us think about the world in a new way.
To make us uncomfortable.
To be uncomfortable, yeah.
Absolutely. He's not afraid to tackle complex, even uncomfortable topics.
You know, he's not afraid of anything.
And his lyrics are so dense, so multi-layered,
They are.
that they demand your full attention.
You can't just have it on in the background. You got to sit down with a notepad.
Let's dive into some of that lyrical wordplay for a minute.
Okay.
One line that always gets me is, how do you weaponize a rabbit?
Yeah, what does that even mean?
It's so cryptic, almost absurd, but it really gets you thinking.
It's a brilliant example of how he can take these seemingly random images
Yeah,
and weave them into a larger commentary on technology and control.
it is.
What do you think he's getting at with that line?
To me, it speaks to the unexpected ways technology can be twisted for destructive purposes.
Okay, I can see that.
You wouldn't think of a rabbit as a weapon,
Right.
but Canibus is forcing us to consider how even something seemingly innocent can be manipulated for nefarious ends.
I think that's a great interpretation. Yeah, it's about challenging our assumptions,
Yeah.
forcing us to see the potential for danger, even in the most mundane things.
And then you have lines like Jimmy crack corn from modified hormones, which is both humorous and disturbing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's this play on a classic children's song, but he's twisting it to comment on the dangers of genetically modified food.
Right, he's taking something familiar and turning it on its head, forcing us to question something we might take for granted. And that's what makes his lyrics so thought-provoking. He's constantly challenging us to look beyond the surface.
And he does it all with this incredible technical skill.
Oh, the technical skill is undeniable.
The way he constructs his rhymes,
Yeah.
the internal rhymes, the multisyllabic rhymes, it's just mind-blowing.
He's a master of language, there's no doubt about it.
He's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
And he uses that mastery to craft these intricate narratives, these dense tapestries of meaning
Yeah.
that you can unravel for hours and still find new layers.
It's like he's creating these lyrical puzzles,
Yeah.
and it's up to the listener to piece them together.
And the reward is this deeper understanding of his message, this glimpse into his unique worldview.
For those listening who are new to Canibus and want to explore his work further,
Yeah?
where would you point them?
The channels C Radio on Spotify and Rippers Unite on YouTube are absolute gold mines.
Oh yeah, those are great resources.
You'll find hours of his music there, and it's a great starting point for anyone wanting to dive into his vast discography.
I second that.
You won't be disappointed.
Okay, let's get back to the song itself.
All right.
One thing that struck me about The Last Christians is the way Canibus blends religious imagery with his social commentary.
Right. The song's title itself is provocative.
It is.
It suggests a world where faith is on the decline, or perhaps even under attack.
And he uses lines like, they said God bless his radioactive remains, to really highlight the hypocrisy
Yeah.
and manipulation that can often be found within organized religion.
It's like he's saying that faith can be a powerful tool for control,
Mm-hmm.
and those in power are all too willing to exploit it for their own ends.
Which brings us back to that central theme of manipulation.
Right.
The idea that we're all being played by unseen forces.
Exactly. And language, technology, religion, these are all tools that can be used to shape our perceptions and control our behavior.
It's scary to think about.
It is scary. Canibus is urging us to wake up to that reality.
He's like a prophet warning us of the dangers ahead.
He's calling on us to become more critical thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
to question the narratives we're being fed,
Yeah.
and to reclaim our autonomy.
And in a world where information is increasingly weaponized,
It's only getting worse.
that message is more relevant than ever.
Absolutely. Canibus was ahead of his time in many ways.
He was.
And The Last Christians is a powerful testament to his lyrical genius
It is.
and his ability to cut through the noise and make us really confront the uncomfortable truths about the world around us.
I completely agree. It's a song that stays with you long after the final note,
It does.
and it continues to challenge and provoke us even today.
Before we move on to the final part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to highlight about The Last Christians that we haven't touched on yet?
I think it's worth mentioning that while the song paints a bleak picture of the future, it's not without hope.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Canibus's defiance, his refusal to be silenced, that's a message of hope in itself.
It is.
It suggests that even in the face of oppression, we can still find ways to resist, to fight back, to create meaning.
It's a reminder that we have the power to shape our own narratives,
Yeah.
to choose how we respond to the challenges of the world.
Exactly. We're not just passive victims.
No, we're not.
We have agency.
We do.
And Canibus is urging us to embrace it.
Yeah, that's a really powerful point. It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom of The Last Christians,
It is.
but there's definitely an undercurrent of resilience running through it.
Absolutely. It's like he's saying, yeah, the world's a mess, but I'm not going to let it break me. I'm going to use my words to fight back, to expose the truth, to inspire others to do the same.
And that brings us to a crucial question that Canibus raises throughout the song.
Okay.
If language itself can be used for manipulation, how can we even begin to discern truth from falsehood in this information-saturated world?
That's the challenge we all face, isn't it? We're bombarded with information from all sides.
We are.
And it can be difficult to sift through it all and figure out what's real and what's not.
It's like we're constantly being pulled in different directions, and it's easy to get lost in the noise.
Yeah, you can get swept away.
So where do we even begin?
I think the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing that manipulation exists, that there are people and institutions out there actively trying to shape our perceptions and influence our thinking.
So being skeptical, questioning the sources of information, not just blindly accepting everything we hear or read.
Exactly. Looking for biases, considering multiple perspectives, doing our own research. It's about developing that critical thinking muscle that Canibus is advocating for.
And maybe also being a little wary of those in positions of power. Like he says, the telescope is offline. Why?
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask why, to demand transparency, to hold those in authority accountable.
Absolutely. And to trust your own instincts.
Yeah.
If something feels off, if the narrative doesn't quite add up, and dig deeper, there are resources available to help you fact-check information and verify sources.
It's like that old saying, question everything. In today's world, that's more important than ever.
It really is. And Canibus, through his music, is giving us the tools to do just that. He's showing us that language can be a weapon, but it can also be a shield.
You can cut both ways.
It can be used to manipulate, but it can also be used to enlighten.
It's all about how we wield it right.
Yeah.
And how we choose to interpret the words that are thrown at us.
Precisely. And that's why I think The Last Christians, for all its darkness and dystopian imagery, ultimately offers a message of hope.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a call to reclaim our power, to use our voices to think for ourselves.
To be discerning listeners, critical thinkers, and engaged citizens.
Exactly, to be the last Christian, so to speak, standing up for what we believe in, even when the world seems to be crumbling around us.
That's a powerful image to end on.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who are ready to dive deeper into the lyrical labyrinth of Canibus, where would you recommend they start?
The channels C Radio on Spotify and Rippers Unite on YouTube are great places to start. They offer a wide selection of his music interviews and behind-the-scenes content.
I second that you'll find hours of thought-provoking rhymes and lyrical genius there. And who knows, you might even start questioning the world around you in ways you never thought possible.
That's what Canibus does best. He pushes us to think differently, to see the world through a new lens, and to never stop questioning the narratives we're given.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. In a world where language itself can be a tool of manipulation, what steps can you take to ensure that you're not being controlled by the words of others?
It's something for you to ponder as you continue your own deep dive into the world of information and ideas.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the last Christians. Until next time, keep those critical thinking caps on and never stop questioning.